My name is Sam Gates and welcome to the Bottlecap Brigade's new series on character creation. Today we're going to be talking about how to create an optimized barbarian class. So whether you're new to D&D, really experienced DM, or just want to mix it up and use a different class with the launch of Icewind Dale coming up soon in September, this is going to be for you. So we're going to talk about a couple of different things today. Hopefully I can give you some really awesome information, provide some new details on barbarians that you hadn't thought of yet, and really just kind of show how I like to build my barbarian class. Right now I'm playing a barbarian in the Bottlecap Brigade. We stream every Thursday at about 6:30 Mountain Standard Time whenever we kind of get our act together. So check that out, like and subscribe below. We definitely always appreciate it. So as a disclaimer, I always like to say there is no actual best way to build any class in D&D. Whatever you think is the best, whatever you think is going to support your narrative and how you like to roleplay the best, do that. We're simply just talking about best ways to optimize for min-maxing or like optimizing the stats that you can get as a barbarian to do the most damage, take the most damage, be the most effective as a team player. But as far as role-playing and you wanting to live in your own D&D universe, that's all you. So I'm just kind of giving you some general advice as far as the numbers behind barbarians go. We're only going to be talking about some classes and features from the player's handbook, as well as Xanathar's Guide to Everything. There's a lot of different expansions and we don't want to get too far into weeds with all of that, just focusing on those two today. So we're going to cover 4 things. First is race. Race is really the foundation for whatever you're building here with your character. It gives you a really good baseline to be able to think of how you need to expand moving forward when we talk about different backgrounds, your skill set, and feats. So your race is really the fundamental starting point. The second is skills and backgrounds. Skills obviously are really useful for pretty much everything in D&D. It's how the game is built out. They really make your character effective in battle. They make your character effective in roleplay when they're having conversations with NPCs and the DM. It's what really drives your character to be themselves. And then the background is kind of flavor on top of that, right? There's a couple of different backgrounds that I recommend for barbarians specifically because they're fun, but that's going to be more of your personal flavor. Third is the Primal Path. There were some amazing Primal Paths released with XGE or Xanathars. We're really only going to focus on the Path of the Totem Warrior and the Path of the Ancestral Guardian today. There's 5 or 6 different ones, especially with XGE, that were released. I think Path of the Zealot and Path of the Storm Herald are 2 of the ones that I really like, and I'll talk about them a little bit, but they're super cool. We're only going to be focusing on Path of the Totem Warrior and Path of the Ancient Guardian today, though, just because those are really the more optimal classes, I feel like, in the Barbarian subset. And lastly, we're going to be talking about feats. I'm going to be doing a video for all of the different classes in 5th edition here. I feel that the feats are all going to be really, really important for each and every class. Keep in mind, feats are kind of at your DM's discretion if your DM wants to allow the optional feats rule. Also, on top of that, some DMs actually let you take a feat at first level instead of a statistic boost. So always talk to your DM before you're doing these things. Everyone runs their games a little bit differently, so make sure that it's an option before you kind of invest too much time and effort into this. Lastly, down below, there's going to be timestamps for all this. I know me personally, when I'm watching YouTube videos and tutorials, I really, really hate it when I have to listen to the whole thing to find the one thing that I want. So I'm making a really big point to just write down below. There's timestamps in the description. Check those out. I'm doing my thing, so do that. All right, so let's talk about character races. When we talk about character races in really any context, we need to talk about them in the context of the class that you're focusing on. For barbarians, the race needs to be heavy in strength, constitution, dexterity, maybe a little bit of wisdom if you want to get it in there. But overall, you just need a really tough character. In my opinion, there's 3 really good fits for this. The first one is a Goliath. Goliaths are my personal favorite. I'm actually running one right now in the Bottlecap Brigade. I think they're important because you have Stone's Endurance, you have Natural Athlete, and you have Powerful Build. Stone's Endurance gives you 1d12 plus once per short rest as far as damage reduction goes. That's really, really important to be able to be a little bit more tanky and be a bit more of a party supporter so you can get in front of enemies and take some damage without having to worry about dying every 5 seconds. Natural Athlete gives you proficiency in athletics right from the get-go, which is something that every barbarian should have. Obviously important to have athletics. And Powerful Build lets you move, lift, carry, push, pull objects that are one size larger than you. The math is a little bit complicated. We did it for Ong in the Bottlecap Brigade, and I can lift 1,080 pounds. It's a bit of an inside joke now, but that's something that can, both for role-playing and for in battle, provide a bit of an extra boost to get the job done. Last thing with Goliath, you get a +2 to strength and +1 to constitution right off the bat. So that's really a perfect skill boost to start for a barbarian. The second one, and I kind of questioned how I wanted to put this in because I think that this is going to be a through line through all of these videos, is human variant. Now, a human variant is something that, again, not all DMs will allow. It's essentially a human, but rather than the standard human boost, they actually get a +1 to 2 different skills in addition to being able to take a feat at first level. That's a little bit broken, if we're being honest, when we kind of really consider what feats can do and how much variance there is in there. So I don't think it's necessarily fair when we're talking about the game overall, but if you can take it, do it. You're going to be stronger as a result of that. Then the third one is half-orcs. I feel like half-orcs are kind of the traditional barbarian D&D race for that class. It's something that has been around for a really long time. I mean, even if you played literally any RPG in the past 20 years, you've seen orcs and half-orcs as barbarians, as that archetype, so it's a big deal. They have dark vision by default. They also get proficiency in intimidation, relentless endurance, which is something that gets replaced later on down the level advancement. I think it's at level 14 for barbarians anyway, so that one's not that big of a deal. But savage attack with half-orcs is a real good bonus. You essentially get an additional hit die whenever you make a critical attack. That stacks really well with some of the feats that we're going to talk about later, as well as with some of the basal barbarian boosts. Like at 5th level, you get an extra attack, so being able to roll some extra hit die can be useful. So let's talk about skills and backgrounds now. When we're talking about skills, again, I'm going to reiterate, we're going to focus on 3 things kind of for strength, constitution, dexterity, and kind of wisdom if you care about that. One of the biggest benefits when it comes to being a barbarian with your armor class or your AC is unarmored defense. That essentially means that instead of having to, worry about wearing heavy armor and being slowed down as a result of it, you can decide to not wear armor, and then your AC, or what it actually takes to get hit, equals 10 plus your constitution modifier plus your dexterity modifier. And you can have a shield on top of that. So a lot of first level barbarians, it's really, if you have good rolls, it's not hard to get within the 15 to 17 range for your armor class right off the bat, which is a huge number. Also, just kind of as an aside, you get a save on your dexterity throws starting first level, so that's great. Anytime a trap goes off or whatever and you can see it, you can kind of get out of the way a little bit easier. It saves you some damage. All right, moving on from backgrounds. I think backgrounds are super fun. I love the roleplay aspect of Dungeons and Dragons as a general rule. So when it comes to barbarians, I really feel like there's 2 that fit the archetype pretty well. The first one is Pirate. That's the one that I chose for Ong in the Bottlecap Brigade. I think Pirate is great, mostly just because you can commit petty crimes and get away with it. I mean, if you want to knock beer out of someone's hand and kick their door in, technically as a result of that, you're not set to face any consequences from the police or the constable or whoever the DM wants to call in. You're pretty much off scot-free with the bad reputation perk, but that's just more for fun. You also get a boost in athletics and perception. You get advantage to those by default as a pirate, which is great. You also are able to navigate using water vehicles, which is awesome. And I think it's just a fun class. If you're going to be anywhere near the water, Pirate's a great choice. Outlander is kind of my second pick on this. It's really good if you have a more strict DM. They have a boost to survival skills as well as an additional language. So you can have a barbarian that speaks Abyssal or whatever, just get weird with it. Okay, third up, Primal Path. Now this is really the meat and potatoes. This is the nitty gritty of your barbarian. And this is where a lot of customization comes into play. Anytime we start talking about subclasses or trees, this is where I spend the most time figuring out when I'm character creating exactly where I want to go and mapping this whole thing out. I feel like if you have a pretty good idea of where you're going to take this when you start making this character, it makes role playing, it makes character advancement and level advancement so much easier. It makes it easier for you to kind of know how you're going to be fitting into the party as far as the campaign goes moving forward. And it's just the most fun. I think that skill trees and stuff in RPGs are super awesome and super fun. So here we go. So the first one here is Path of the Ancestral Guardian. Once again, the one that I picked in the Bottlecap Brigade for Ong. Super fun, super great path. I feel like it really toes the line between having a tank barbarian and having a barbarian that can actually do some damage. Kind of meshes that together pretty well. On top of that, it has some really great party defense aspects. So at 3rd level, you can essentially, once you attack a creature, if they attack something else, they have disadvantage. It's really good to be able to get enemies to focus in on you instead of your friends, so you can take some of that damage. And then at 6th level, you get Ancestral Shield, which is awesome. It essentially makes it so you can, from a distance, put a shield up for one of your friends, get them out of a bit of a tight spot. And then at 14th level, Vengeful Ancestors lets you reflect some of that damage back. So it's a really good way to help your party out, while also giving yourself a nice boost there. The only thing that I'm not quite so stoked about is Consult the Spirits. At 10th level, you gain Consult the Spirits. It essentially just makes it so if you're in a bit of a tight spot, the DM might throw a weird trap at you, or you just can't figure out a puzzle. You can call on an ancestral guardian from your past, like your great granddad or whatever, to come in and say, hey, just press the red button, you'll be fine. It's a great roleplay thing and a really good roleplay mechanic in general. But it's a really good roleplay mechanic in general, but it really doesn't help out too much in battle. It's more just a fun thing that you can use to throw in the face of your DM every once in a while. Path of the Totem Warrior is next. Path of the Totem Warrior, if you go anywhere on the internet and read anything regarding barbarian builds, Path of the Totem Warrior is probably going to come first on most of them. The reason being is because it's a pretty broken build. If you do it the right way, and if you think about feats ahead of time, you can build a character that is essentially unstoppable. Let's talk about it. So you essentially get 3 different animal choices throughout the Path of the Totem Warrior, again, kind of at the 3rd, 6th, and 14th levels. My recommendations are pretty simple. Your first pick at 3rd level, pick the bear. It's really a no-brainer. We'll talk about it in a second. At the 6th level, you kind of have 2 choices. I recommend either elk or wolf. We'll talk about that too. And then at the 14th level, you once again kind of have 2 choices. I recommend elk or eagle. So let's kind of talk about why I'm saying all of these things and all these animals in that weird order, to give you a better idea of what I mean. So your first pick at the 3rd level with the bear as your totem spirit essentially just gives you resistance to all damage other than psychic. Resistance in D&D essentially just means that you get to take half damage. That's a really, really big reduction. And the fact that it covers everything other than psychic damage is probably one of the more broken things about this build. It's just not fair to your DM. Your second pick at 6th level for what's called Aspect of the Beast, I recommend elk just because it doubles your movement speed. For most barbarians, you start with 30 feet of movement speed. At 5th level, you get another 10 feet. So with a double on that, you're moving literally 80 feet per turn. Your party also gets a movement boost on top of that. You control the battlefield point blank. That's so far. If you want to make it a little bit different, you can choose wolf instead. You can be a little bit of a sneaky boy, but I think that elk really just takes the cake on this just because you can move forever. Lastly, for your 14th level Totemic Attunement mod, you can choose either elk or eagle depending on what your flavor is. With elk, whenever you make a hit, you can pretty easily knock someone prone and also do an additional 1d12 damage. With eagle, you can kind of fly for a turn, which is horrifying. I mean, if you pick like a Goliath or a half-orc, just being able to leap into the air and fly around sounds horrifying. But I mean, there's a lot of options, right? Read through the player's handbook, read through the guide. It's really your choice. Those are my recommendations for optimization. 2, like I was saying, Path of the Zealot and Path of the Storm Herald are really awesome options. Just if you're kind of bored or want to do something different with your barbarian this time, you can't go wrong. All right, I've talked a little bit about feats in here already. I'm going to talk a lot more about feats because feats are a big deal and it's kind of fun to say feats over and over again. So first thing I'm going to talk about is Great Weapon Master here. I'm going to spend a little bit of time on this because honestly, it's super important. The first thing that you get with Great Weapon Master is anytime you roll a critical hit or kill an enemy, you get to make an additional attack as a bonus action on that turn. That means at level 5 as a barbarian, you could be attacking 3-4 times depending on, your skill set and what you choose. You have a lot of attacks to work with. This is even more useful if you multi-class to fighter level 3. And not to digress too much regarding multi-classing, but with barbarians, because I have a little bit of experience with them, I have some pretty serious recommendations when it comes to multi-classing. Skip ahead, whatever. I just think that if you multi-class with a barbarian through a long campaign, like if you have a campaign and you're expecting to take it to level 20, you're really doing yourself a disservice by multi-classing. At level 20 as a barbarian, if you put all of your level points into barbarian, you get a +4 bonus to strength and a +4 bonus to constitution, and the actual cap for those skill numbers goes up to 24. That is a huge statistical advantage when it comes to reaching end game. It's too important to miss out on as a barbarian. It's really, really worth your time to just put it in there. But if you're running a shorter campaign or a one shot, maybe you have like 7th, 8th, 9th level character to work with during a one shot, go ahead and make a barbarian, put 6 levels into barbarian, 3 levels into fighter. You're gonna have a really strong build that way. But anyway, back to Great Weapon Master. With the automatic advantage you get using Reckless Attack, which is a 2nd level boost that you get, and I really mean automatic. You should use Reckless Attack literally every time. Statistically, it works out in your advantage. There's no reason that you and your DM shouldn't just have an agreement that I'm always attacking recklessly. It shouldn't matter. But the fact that in addition to that, Great Weapon Master also gives you +10 to your damage while only taking away 5 points on your hit die is massive. That just essentially means when you roll your d20 to hit, if you roll a 19, that essentially just gets reduced to a 14 plus whatever modifiers you have to actually hit your target. And if you succeed on that, you get an automatic +10 to the actual damage that you're dealing on this. I mean, seriously, the only time that you're not going to want to use this is if you're fighting a boss with a super high AC, or for some reason you have a reduction on your hit die. But as a barbarian, you're usually going to hit stuff anyway. You have a really good chance of doing that. So taking a 5-point reduction on that isn't really hurting you too much. Next one is Sentinel. I personally kind of recommend taking this at level 4. It's a great feat. It absolutely punishes enemies for getting close to you. And it punishes them even harder if they get close to you and attack one of your friends. It also kind of harking back, if you wind up taking the Path of the Totem Warrior, it eliminates you having to take Bear at level 14. So it frees that up for you to be able to take, like I was saying, either Elk or Eagle and be able to fly around a little. So the third one is Luck. I think luck is always important statistically. You're going to gain a huge advantage by being able to re-roll your dice 3 times a day. Always take luck. I'm going to say that in every one of these videos. And also, kind of as an aside, take Tough, Alert, and Polearm Master into consideration as additional feats down the road. They can be kind of helpful depending on your build and what you actually want to accomplish with your Barbarian. Well, there you have it. That is literally everything you will ever need to know about Barbarians. Don't look up any other guides. Don't look at any other YouTube videos. I am the utmost expert on all of this, so you don't need to look around anywhere else. I'm just kidding. Read the Player's Handbook front to back. Read all of Xanathar's Guide to Everything. Get Icewind Dale when it comes out. I really haven't taken too much of a look into it, but from what I hear and what some of the developers were saying, they've made it really, really cool for DMs to be able to spend a little bit less time having to deal with some of the more difficult parts of running some campaigns. I remember with Curse of Strahd, it took me forever to figure out how I actually wanted to position that campaign with my players, how I wanted to run through it. If Reddit wasn't a thing, it would have taken me forever and I probably would have given up. So I know with Icewind Dale, they're working on some of those sticky bits, which is awesome. And then get creative. Let me know in the comments if I missed anything or if there's a class that you think I should cover next. I'm kind of trying to go alphabetically throughout this. So next, hopefully Bard, maybe Cleric after that. And 2, let me know in the comments if you think my ideas are garbage, because they probably are. And if you have some better builds or ideas, I'd love to hear about them. Last things last, pretty please go ahead and like and subscribe down below. We definitely appreciate it. Every little bit helps. We love D&D and we love making this content. So the more support we have behind it, the more cool content we can hope to bring to you. So thanks again for joining. Hope you're staying safe and healthy, and I wish you the best luck on your next campaign. Bye. Check that out. Shoot us a subscription. Check that out. Shoot us a subscription.